All right, so how do you tell a true visionary from someone who's maybe just really good at working people?
Ooh, that is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially these days.
Especially these days, like you said.
With all the influencers and
Exactly. It's really hard to tell who's genuine and who's
right.
just trying to sell you something.
hmm
So,
So today we're going to tackle this question by looking at one of the most infamous figures in criminal history, Ted Bundy.
oh yeah, Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
He's a fascinating case study because on the surface, he was this charming, intelligent law student.
Right.
But underneath it all, he was a brutal serial killer.
A brutal serial killer.
Yeah. And he confessed to 30 murders.
30 murder.
But the true number is unknown.
Oh.
So that's really where this whole question of gifted or grifter gets really complicated.
Yeah, that's what makes this case so interesting.
Yeah.
And to try to figure this out, you've brought in a really interesting mix of sources.
We've got articles and police reports from the time, which give us sort of like the hard facts
The facts.
of the case.
Yeah.
But also you brought excerpts from The Phantom Prince,
Yes.
which is a memoir by Elizabeth Kloepfer.
Okay, Liz Kendall.
Okay, Liz Kendall, who was Bundy's long-term girlfriend.
Yes, exactly. So Liz's perspective is really crucial here because she saw both sides of Bundy.
Right.
She experienced the charm and the deception firsthand.
Yeah.
They met in 1969 at a bar in Seattle.
Okay.
She was a single mom and she was struggling with alcoholism.
Tough situation.
Yeah. And at the time, Bundy seemed incredibly supportive, even acting as a father figure to her daughter, Molly.
Okay, so already we're seeing this sort of like
Blurred lines.
blurred lines. Yeah, like was he genuinely drawn to Liz or was there something else going on?
Right. Was he manipulating her?
Yeah.
And in fact, Anne Rule, who was a true crime writer who knew Bundy, suggests that he might have even been interested in Liz for her money.
Interesting. So maybe he saw an opportunity there.
Potentially.
Yeah.
It definitely makes you wonder about, like you said, do con artists specifically seek out vulnerable people, or is it more just like a crime of opportunity?
Yeah, like is anyone fair game or are they really looking for someone
Right.
who's maybe easy to manipulate?
Exactly. And either way, Bundy was really good at being whoever he needed to be.
Like a chameleon.
Totally. Yeah.
Blending in.
Right. And for a while, it seems like Liz totally bought into that image that he projected.
She did.
Until she started finding some strange things in his apartment.
Oh, yeah.
Like plaster of Paris, crutches he couldn't explain,
Oh, yeah.
and a hatchet under the seat of his car.
Red flag.
Like, this is some pretty scary stuff.
Yeah, I mean, these are classic red flags. They
Right.
might seem explainable on their own,
Right.
but together it just starts to seem like something's not right.
Yeah, like a pattern is emerging.
Exactly.
Right.
And what's really interesting is how Bundy reacted when Liz confronted him about all these things.
Like, did he just deny it? Well, he had a convenient explanation for everything.
Oh, so he was good at talking his way out of things.
Very good.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Liz initially sort of dismissed these concerns.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine questioning the man you love like that?
Yeah, that must be really difficult
It would be.
to like reconcile what you're seeing with what you want to believe.
Absolutely.
It's a tough spot to be in.
And then on top of that, composite sketches of the suspect in these murders start circulating.
Right.
And Liz noticed a resemblance to Bundy.
Oh, wow.
And his car.
And his car.
Yeah.
Wow. So
It's a huge moment.
can you imagine?
I can't.
That's the guy you love.
Yeah.
And he looks like the person they're looking for these awful murders.
Right.
So Liz actually contacted the police multiple times
Wow.
to tell them about her suspicions.
That's really brave.
It is brave,
Yeah, to go against someone you're so close to like that.
especially when you're emotionally invested.
Totally. She must have been really conflicted.
So in between her feelings and what she was seeing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But even with her tips, Bundy wasn't considered a serious suspect for a while.
Why not?
Well, it's not uncommon in cases like this.
Okay.
People have a hard time believing that someone who seems normal
Right.
could be capable of such horrific things.
That's like they just don't fit the mold?
Exactly. And law enforcement struggles with this too.
Yeah.
Like,
It's almost like you don't want to believe it.
right. We tend to think if someone's charismatic, they must be trustworthy.
Right.
And that's not always the case.
Definitely not always the case.
Yeah.
And so while all this was happening, Bundy actually moved to Utah for law school.
Oh, wow.
And he and Liz sort of drifted apart.
Okay.
But even from a distance, he would still call her,
Really?
profess his love,
God.
and make promises to marry her.
So even while he was allegedly committing these murders, he was keeping Liz on the hook.
It's almost like a way of controlling her.
Right. It's a very manipulative
Yeah.
tactic.
Yeah. And then comes the moment in Utah when Bundy's carefully constructed facade starts to crumble.
Oh, yeah.
This is the Utah arrest.
Right.
He gets pulled over for a speeding violation,
Oh.
and the officer finds burglary tools in his car,
What?
like a crowbar,
Oh.
handcuffs,
Uh-huh.
rope,
Wow. Masks?
like not exactly standard equipment for a law student.
Not at all.
It's like a glimpse behind the curtain.
Right. Right.
Like you see the tools of the grifter.
Yeah, it's like, wait a minute. Who are you, really?
Exactly. And it's so strange to think that someone so careful about their public image
Right.
could be so careless in other areas.
Yeah, like sloppy.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, did you just think he was invincible?
Maybe he thought he was above the law.
Maybe.
It's fascinating.
It is.
So this arrest kicks off this whole chain of events. But even after he's arrested, Bundy manages to keep his true identity hidden for a while.
Wow. Still playing the game.
Still playing the game, he escapes from jail in Colorado.
What?
Continues his violence.
And it all culminates in those horrific sorority murders in Florida.
Oh my gosh.
It's just this downward spiral.
Yeah. Each escape, each act of violence is like another crack in his carefully crafted persona.
Right. And then finally he's cornered,
Yeah.
facing the consequences.
Okay.
And he breaks down and calls Liz from jail.
Wow, after all that time he calls her.
He does.
Wow. It's like the mask finally comes off, right?
Yeah.
And during that call, he admits to feeling this dark, uncontrollable force inside of him,
Yeah.
this compulsion to commit violence.
Wow. So is he being truthful?
Right.
Or is this another layer of manipulation?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, is this just a calculated attempt to deflect responsibility?
Right.
I mean, this is where forensic psychology can help us maybe understand a little bit more.
Okay, so what are we talking about here?
Well, we can't actually diagnose anyone after they've passed away,
Right.
but Bundy's behavior seems to align with what we know about antisocial personality disorder.
So sociopathy. And these individuals often lack empathy.
Right.
They disregard social norms, and they can be incredibly manipulative.
Very much so.
But wouldn't that make them more likely to be a grifter then?
That's what you would think, right?
Yeah.
But it's not always that simple.
Okay.
Because in Bundy's case, there's evidence that suggests that he genuinely believed in his own superiority.
Wow.
Like he thought he was special
Mhm.
in his own twisted worldview.
So he saw himself as both gifted and justified
Exactly.
in his actions.
Yeah, it's a scary thought.
Yeah, it's really disturbing.
It is.
Because it's not just a con man looking for a quick score.
No.
This is like a deeply ingrained belief system
It is.
that rationalizes these awful actions.
Absolutely.
You know, then this brings us to maybe one of the most unsettling parts of Bundy's confessions.
Yeah, what's that?
So he admitted to Liz that he once tried to kill her.
Wait, he tried to kill Liz?
He did.
The woman he supposedly loved?
The woman he supposedly loved. He filled her apartment with smoke while she was sleeping.
Oh my God.
She only survived because she woke up and opened a window.
That is terrifying.
It's a complete betrayal of trust.
Yeah, it shatters that illusion of love and devotion that he had so carefully built up.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And what about Liz's daughter?
Molly.
Yeah, Molly.
Yeah.
How did she factor into all of this?
Well, Molly's story is another really crucial perspective on Bundy's manipulation.
Okay.
Especially because he acted like a father figure to her.
Right. Yeah.
And she actually shared some pretty disturbing anecdotes in the documentary Ted Bundy, Falling for a Killer.
Oh, wow. I haven't seen that.
And she wrote a chapter for a later edition of her mother's book.
So Liz went back and added to her book
She did.
to include Molly's experiences.
Yeah, it must have been so difficult for both of them.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, one incident that really stands out is this seemingly innocent game of hide and seek.
Okay.
Molly was about 7 at the time,
Okay.
and she found Bundy hiding under a blanket, completely naked.
Oh my gosh, that's awful.
It is. She was just a child.
Did she even understand what was happening?
It seems like she was too young to fully grasp it,
Yeah.
but the memory obviously stayed with her.
Right.
And in another incident, she talks about Bundy getting into bed with her and at some point saying, "You peed,"
Oh gosh.
not realizing what had actually happened.
That's just heartbreaking.
It is.
A child's innocence violated in such a horrible way.
And these weren't isolated incidents either.
Right. It paints a very disturbing picture of his behavior towards her.
Absolutely.
What's even more disturbing is that Molly didn't tell her mom about any of this until years later.
Wow. Why do you think that is?
Was she afraid of Bundy?
Maybe.
Did she not fully understand?
It could be a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
Fear, shame, confusion.
Right.
She actually says in the book that we love Ted.
Hmm.
He had been such a positive figure in our lives.
Wow.
Such a help to us.
Wow.
I didn't want him to get in trouble.
Wow, so she was protecting him.
It seems like it.
Maybe even protecting her mom from the pain of knowing.
Possibly. It's a really powerful example of how abusers can silence their victims.
Yeah. Especially charismatic and manipulative ones.
Exactly. They twist the narrative. They make it hard for people to speak out.
It makes you wonder how many other potential victims there might have been.
Right. People who are afraid or unable to come forward.
Exactly.
It's one of the most disturbing aspects of this case. We may never know the full extent of Bundy's crimes,
Yeah.
but by looking at everything we do know,
Right.
his actions, his relationships, his confessions,
Mm-hmm.
we can start to understand the psychology of a manipulator,
Okay.
the warning signs, and the devastating impact on the victims.
So if we zoom out a little bit,
Yeah.
what can we learn from this?
Well, the Bundy case is a chilling but valuable lesson in human psychology.
Okay.
Appearances can be deceiving.
Right.
He was a master manipulator, able to blend and
Wow.
appear normal,
Right.
all while hiding these dark impulses.
It really underscores the importance of trusting your gut.
Right. If something feels off, even if you can't explain it,
Yeah,
you should pay attention to that feeling.
absolutely. And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Right. Challenge inconsistencies, get a second opinion.
Yeah, don't dismiss those nagging doubts.
Exactly. Even if they're about someone you care about.
Right, because as we've seen, con artists often target vulnerable people.
Yes. People who are looking for connection or someone to fill a void.
And Bundy offered that to Liz.
He offered stability companionship, a father figure for Molly.
And that made it even harder for her to see the truth.
Right. The deeper the connection, the harder it is to question.
Exactly. So is there a foolproof way to spot a con artist?
I wish there was.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, human behavior is complex.
Right.
And manipulation can be really subtle.
Yeah. So it's not about becoming paranoid or suspicious of everyone,
Right.
but more about being informed
Right.
and aware.
Be discerning in your interactions.
Yeah.
Trust your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Never stop questioning.
So what are some of the red flags we should watch out for?
Well, one key indicator is a mismatch between words and actions.
Okay.
So does their behavior actually align with what they're saying?
Right.
Like Bundy professed his love for Liz,
Right.
but he was also committing these horrific acts of violence.
Totally different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also look for that tendency to deflect responsibility.
Okay.
Like Bundy blaming this uncontrollable force.
Right.
They're always the victim.
Yeah.
Never taking ownership.
Right.
Be wary of people who always need sympathy or blame others for their problems.
So they twist the situation
Totally.
to their advantage.
Yeah, they're masters at that.
Like a reality distortion feel.
Yes.
And the people around them get sucked in.
Exactly. It's important to remember that manipulators are often very skilled at what they do.
Right.
They exploit our natural tendencies to trust,
Right.
especially those who appear charming or successful.
It's not about being distrustful of everyone,
No.
but about being informed and using your judgment. Question things.
Be aware.
The Bundy case is a chilling reminder that evil can wear many masks.
It can, and we have to be vigilant.
Yeah.
We have to always question and always try to see beyond that facade.
It's a lot to think about, isn't it?
It really is.
This idea that someone so intelligent,
Oh.
so charismatic,
Yeah.
can be so completely lacking in empathy.
Yeah, it challenges our perceptions of good and evil.
It really does.
It makes you realize that evil isn't always obvious.
Right. It doesn't always look like what we expect.
No, it doesn't lurk in the shadows twirling a mustache.
Right. Exactly.
It can be charming, persuasive, even seductive.
And that's what makes this whole gifted or grifter question so relevant.
Especially today.
Especially today, right?
Yeah.
In this world of influencers and entrepreneurs.
So many self-proclaimed visionaries.
Exactly. How do we tell the real deal from the fakes?
It's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
It takes critical thinking,
Right.
looking beyond the surface.
Being discerning. So any practical tips?
Well, one key takeaway from the Bundy case is to look at the alignment of words and actions.
Okay, so do they walk the walk?
Exactly.
Not just talk the talk?
Right. Do their actions match their claims?
Like Bundy saying he loved Liz while committing these horrible crimes.
Exactly. A major disconnect.
Yeah.
Total mismatch.
Right. And also watch out for people who always shift the blame.
Oh, yeah. Always the victim.
Right. Never taking responsibility,
Classic manipulator move.
like Bundy and that uncontrollable force.
Exactly. Always an excuse.
So true visionaries are willing to admit mistakes.
Absolutely. They're willing to learn and grow.
It's that vulnerability
Right.
that can be a sign of authenticity.
Exactly. Con artists are usually defensive and in denial.
Right. So they build up these walls.
Totally.
And manipulators often prey on our emotion.
They exploit our desire for connection.
For belonging.
That need to feel special.
So we need to be aware of our own vulnerabilities.
Yes.
Our emotional triggers.
Are we seeking validation?
Right. Are we looking for a quick fix?
Easy answers.
Those are the things that con artists look for.
Exactly. They prey on those desires.
So awareness is key.
Absolutely. The more we understand these tactics, the better we can protect ourselves.
This deep dive into the Ted Bundy case has been so valuable.
I agree.
It's not just about a horrific crime. It's about understanding human nature.
The dark side of charisma.
Right. And empowering ourselves to be more discerning.
In a world where image is everything.
Exactly.
It's true.
If anyone wants to learn more, I highly recommend Elizabeth Kloepfer's book, The Phantom Prince.
It's a powerful read.
It is. It's a first-hand account of her relationship with Bundy.
Really gives you a glimpse inside the mind of a manipulator.
And it's out of print, but worth looking for.
Definitely.
So as we wrap up, are there any relationships or situations in your own life where you might be overlooking some red flags?
Ooh, that's a good question to ask yourself.
It is.
Yeah. Are there people whose charisma might be masking something darker?
Take a moment to reflect.
Trust your gut.
Question things.
Stay curious, but stay vigilant.
Great advice. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.